ஆழ்வார் எம்பெருமானார் ஜீயர் திருவடிகளே சரணம். ஸ்ரீசைலேச தயாபாத்திரம் தீபக்தியாதி குணார்ணவம் யதீந்திர பிரவணம் வந்தே ரம்ய ஜாமாதரமுனிம் லக்ஷ்மீநாத சமாரம்பாம் நாத யாமுன மத்தியமாம் அஸ்மதாச்சாரிய பரியந்தாம் வந்தே குரு பரம்பராம். யோ நித்யமச்சுத பதாம்புஜ யுக்மருக்ம வியாமோஹதஸ்ததிதராணி த்ருணாயமேனே அஸ்மத் குரோர் பகவதோஸ்ய தயைக சிந்தோஹோ ராமானுஜஸ்ய சரணௌ சரணம் பிரபத்யே. மாதா பிதா யுவதயஸ்தனயா விபூதிः சர்வம் யதேவ நியமேன மதன்வயானாம் ஆத்யஸ்ய நः குலபதேர்வகுளாபிராமம் ஸ்ரீமத் ததங்கிரியுகலம் பிரணமாமி மூர்த்னா. பூதம் சரஸ்ச மகதாஹ்வய பட்டநாத ஸ்ரீ பக்திசார குலசேகர யோகிவாஹான் பக்தாங்கிரேணு பரகால யதீந்திரமிஸ்ரான் ஸ்ரீமத் பராங்குசமுனிம் பிரணதோஸ்மி நித்யம். கண்ணும் சுழன்னு பிழையோடு இழை வந்தேங்கினால் பண்ணின் மொழியார் பைய நடமினென்னாத முன் விண்ணும் மலையும் வேதமும் வேள்வியுமாயினான் நன்னு நரையூர் நாம் தொழுதுமெழு நெஞ்சமே. ஆழ்வார்கள் வாழி அருளிச் செயல் வாழி தாழ்வாதுமில் குரவர் தாம் வாழி ஏழ்வாரும் உய்ய அவர்கள் உரைத்தவைகள் தாம் வாழி செய்ய மறை தன்னுடனே சேர்ந்து. ஸ்ரீ கர்கவம்ச கலச்சார்ணவ பூர்ணச்சந்திரம் ஸ்ரீ வெங்கடாரிய குருவர்ய தனூஜரத்னம் தஸ்மாத் அவாப்த நிகமாந்த ரகசியஜாலம் ஸ்ரீமத் சலேசய குரும் சததம் பஜாமி. Dear Astikas, for the last few months we have been enjoying the glories of the various Divya Desams. They are called Divya Desams because Sriman Narayana, out of his compassion, gives us all his seva there, and in those Divya Desams or in these kshetrams, the Alvars have done Mangalasasanams. In that line, today we are going to enjoy the glory of this Divya Desam called Thirunaraiyur. It is called Nachiyar Kovil as well. Thirunaraiyur, Nachiyar Kovil. Thirunaraiyur is one of the Chola Desa Divya Desams. Here, Neela Devi is given prominence and the Tayar Vanjulavalli is given prominence. This Divya Desam is located on the way from Kumbakonam to Kudavasal, about 10 kilometers south. It is also called Siddhi Kshetram. Tayar here is Vanjulavalli Tayar and Perumal is Srinivasan or Narayur Nambi or Vasudevan. They appear in Kalyana Tirukkolam or the wedding posture. The Tirtham is called Manimukta Pushkarini, and also there are Sankarshana Tirtham, Pradyumna Tirtham, Aniruddha Tirtham and Samba Tirtham. The Vimanam is called Srinivasa Vimanam, Hema Vimanam. This temple is built in the Mada Koil style. What that means is you will have a set of steps. You have to climb up a set of steps and then there will be a veranda of sorts, and then you have to climb up another five or six set of steps and so on until you are able to reach the Sanctum Sanctorum where Perumal and Tayar give their seva. This Mada Koil has a special significance in that this type of temple, Mada Koil, is such that apparently elephants cannot enter this temple. And this temple was built by a Chola king. So this Chola king apparently was a spider in the Sanctum Sanctorum inside Thiruvanaikovil, and he used to build a spider web as his offering to Shiva there. And an elephant used to come and destroy it. So he built a lot of temples in the Mada Kovil style for Shiva. He built about 70 temples. Ezhil Madam 70 செய்து என்று Thirumangaiyalvar has mentioned this. So that Chola king and then eventually built this Thirunaraiyur temple. So the Tayar here, Vanjulavalli Tayar, apparently she was adopted by the rishi called Medhavi Muni. So she appeared to Medhavi Muni and asked him to adopt her. he did so and he raised her as his own daughter. And then when the time came, she got married to Perumal. We will look at the brief Sthala Puranam also. And at the time of their wedding, Medhavi Muni told Perumal, Srinivasa Perumal, that, "O Perumale, she is a very dear daughter to me. She is not used to doing any work. I have given her lots of chellam. So everything has to be per her wish. She has to be given the predominance. Do you consent to all of this before you are willing to marry her?" Perumal accepted. There is an interesting story, they say, as to why Perumal accepted. Because Perumal knew that in the Kalikalam, the husbands all have to listen to their wives anyway. So he might as well take the lead and do so. So he does that here in Thirunaraiyur. And he also does that in Srivilliputturu, which we enjoyed last month. There, Andal is none other than Bhumi Devi. And similarly, the Kshetram, the Divya Desam called Thiruvellarai, is for Sridevi Tayar's prominence. So in all of these Divya Desams, the prominence is given to the Tayar. And you can see that when you are entering the temple and into the sanctum sanctorum. What happens is, usually in all of the Divya Desams or in all of the temples, you will see Perumal standing, whatever posture he is in, you will see him as the central figure. But here, it is Vanjulavalli Tayar who is the central figure and Perumal is by her side. The other importance in this Kshetram is that of Kal Garudan. You may have heard of Kal Garuda Sevai. It is this Divya Kshetram where Kal Garudan is present. Kal means stone. So basically what happens is, in other places, in other temples, you will always be able to have Sevai of Garuda Seva. There will be Garudan. But that Garudan would have been made of either some kind of a metal or wood, etc. or clay, etc. But here in this Divya Desam, Garudan is in stone. He is made of stone. And the Kal Garuda Sevai is very, very famous. It happens twice a year, once in the month of Margari and again in the month of April. And Garuda's Thirunakshatram is Adi Masam Swati Nakshatram. And there are celebrations leading up to Adi Swati in this Divya Desam. It is said that Garuda here, he was sent by Perumal because apparently there were 9 snakes which were disturbing people. And anybody who was sent or everybody who was sent to kill those snakes would actually fall unconscious. So then Perumal gave the orders to Garuda to go and vanquish the snakes. And so did Garuda come and he took them all. So the snakes were all vanquished. He took them all as his Tiruvavaranam or his ornaments. You can see the snakes on his head, as his earrings, on his shoulder, on his belt, etc. So Garuda appears in that posture here. Now when the Garuda Sevai happens, Tayar goes front because Tayar is given predominance in this temple, right? So she goes ahead in the Anna Vahanam or the Swan Vahanam. And then Perumal follows her in the Kal Garuda Vahanam. Now another interesting story is mentioned about the Kal Garuda Sevai here. So the Garuda's Sannidhi, you can see it in one of the madams as you climb up the temple. And in between you will see the Garuda Sannidhi on the right. So when they bring Garuda from the Sanctum Sanctorum, there are only 4 people. But as Garuda descends, as the Sripadam Tangis, as they bring Garuda, the weight increases and then the number of people who carry the Vahana doubles. So first it's only 4 people, then it becomes 8 people carrying the Vahana, and then 16 people, and then finally when they get to the streets, it goes up to 64 or 128 people. So then Perumal and Tayar finish giving seve, they go around the Madavidis and they go around the place. They give seve to everyone and then they return to the temple. When they return to the temple, similarly, once they've crossed the streets and when they enter the temple, at that time, the number of people who have been carrying the Vahana also goes down. So instead of 64 people, it will go down to 32 people, and then it will go down to 16 people, and then to 8 people. And then finally, when Garuda comes back to Asthanam, that is to his Sannidhi, only 4 people are carrying him. This is a very interesting story mentioned about Kal Garuda. Now back to the Perumal. He is called Thirunaraiyur Nambi, Srinivasan or Vasudevan. Now the name Narayur, Thirunaraiyur, is given because apparently this place had a lot of fragrant gardens, and that's what Narai means. It's not the Narai with a small ra, it's the Narai with a Vallina ra in Tamil. Thirunaraiyur, fragrant place. So that's why the place gets its name. Now this Perumal, Thirunaraiyur, Ninna Nambi. Nambi means one who has Guna Purti, which means he is complete in all of the Kalyana Gunams. Now that Thirunaraiyur Nambi is the one who performed Samashrayanam or Pancha Samskaram to none other than Tirumangayalvar himself. Tirumangayalvar was called Kaliyan. His original name is Neelan. So he fell in love with this damsel called Kumudavalli. And Kumudavalli was a Sri Vaishnava. So she refused to marry anybody other than a Sri Vaishnava. So she put forth 2 conditions for Tirumangayalvar, who was not an Alvar at that time. He was Neelan or Kaliyan. And the 2 conditions were Neelan should get his Pancha Samskaram or Samashrayanam. And he should do Tadhiyaradhanam or the seve to devotees by feeding 1,000 devotees, Sri Vaishnavas, every day for 1 whole year. Tirumangayalvar or Neelan was determined to get married to Kumudavalli. So he accepted her wish. He said he will go and accomplish both of them. So the first thing was the easy thing to do, which is to get Samashranam. But Neelan, he was a very crude king. He was very rude. He was very harsh. So who will do Samashrayanam to him? So he came straight away to Thirunaraiyur Nambi's Sannidhi and he said, "Hey Nambi, are you going to do Samashranam for me? You have to do Samashranam for me." Then the Perumal, Thirunaraiyur Nambi, he performed the Pancha Samskaram to Kaliyan, to Neelan. So that is why it is said that unlike other temples where Perumal sports the Shankha and the Chakram up or slightly behind on his shoulders, instead of that, here he sports them forward. He sports them forward because he is applying the Thapa Samskaram, which is to apply the Shankha Mudra, the Chakra Mudra and the Shankha Mudra on the shoulders of the one who is undergoing the Samashrayanam. Tirumangayalvar has done Mangalasasanam to this Divya Desam. He is the only Alvar who has done the Mangalasasanam here. And he did 110 pasurams. Now, you may recall that when we enjoyed the glories of Tirukkannapuram about 2 months ago, I said that Tirukkannapuram Perumal is considered an Acharyan of Tirumangayalvar. And so Tirumangayalvar did Mangalasasanam with over 100 pasurams to Tirukkannapuram Perumal. So similarly to Thirunaraiyur Perumal, who is the Acharya who initiated him, who performed the Pancha Samskaram to him, Tirumangayalvar offered 110 pasurams, 100 of which is contiguous, 100 continuous pasurams in the work called Periya Tirumozhi. Periya Tirumozhi is the work of Thirumangayalvar, and it consists of 1084 pasurams. Out of those 1084 pasurams, 6 continuous decades or 100 not 600, 10 continuous decades, starting from the 6th 100, the 4th decade, to the 7th 100, 3rd decade is dedicated to Thirunaraiyur Nambi. The other speciality is that Thirumangayalvar dedicated something called Madal. What that means is Thirumangayalvar is now lamenting. He's been initiated. Now he is a devotee. He manages to complete the Tadhiyaradhanam with a lot of side stories on Tadhiyaradhanam, which that Thirumangayalvar did, which we will discuss another day. He gets married to Kumudavalli, and both of them are very, very devout bhaktas, Sri Vaishnavas. And Thirumangayalvar is now lamenting. He absolutely wants to go and attain Perumal's Thiruvadi. He wants to go and enjoy with Perumal. But Perumal is not coming. He is eluding. He is waiting for the Parabhakti, Parajnanam and the Paramabhakti to mature before he can take Thirumangayalvar with him. But Thirumangayalvar is not ready to wait. So he composes what is called the Siriya Thirumadal and the Periya Thirumadal. What that means is, so in those days there was a habit called Madal Urdal. What that Madal Urdal means is that, let's say there is a Nayaki, the heroine, and the hero, the Nayakan. Now the Nayaki and the Nayakan have fell in love. And then the Nayakan has to come and seek her hand, but he has not done that yet. The Nayakan has not done that. So the Nayaki waits. Then eventually she decides that she cannot wait anymore. So apparently she will ride on a donkey in the middle of the city, and she will say that this such and such a person is the one who she is in love with and who she has given herself to, and that person has not yet come to marry her. It is considered very derogatory to do that. It is considered derogatory to the Nayakan to do that. Now here, Thirumangayalvar threatens. He wants to threaten Perumal saying, oh, I am going to do that Madalurdal. You better come and take me before that happens. And the two madals, the Siriya Thirumadal and the Periya Thirumadal, are towards Narayur Ninnanambi. It is called Siriya Thirumadal and Periya Thirumadal because in the Siriya Thirumadal, he talks about the Vibhava Gunams, Vibhava Avatarams of Sriman Narayana. That is, talks about Rama Avatara, Krishna Avatara, Narsimha Avatara, and all of that. And then in the Periya Thirumadal, he invokes upon Perumal's Archamurtis. Now, Archamurti means the idol form. The Archamurtis are considered the Yellai Nilam or the height of Saulabhyam because they are so easily accessible to all of us. Now, if you try to say something about the Vibhava Avatarams, Perumal may not listen, it seems. But if you talk about his Archavatarams, then he cannot bear that. So Thirumangayalvar threatens to do Periya Thirumadal by invoking the Archamurtis in Periya Thirumadal. It is said that Sri Ranganatha asked Thirumangayalvar to do a madal on him. Now, Thirumangayalvar was the one who built the madals for Sri Rangam. And Thirumangayalvar refused. He said, Madal inge, madal ange. That is, he will do the madal only for Thirunaraiyur. He composed 110 pasurams, like I mentioned earlier. 100 continuous pasurams in Periya Tirumozhi, and then a couple or so in Thirunaraiyur, and then the two muddles, and then a few other Udiri Pasuram, that is single Pasurams in the other places within Periya Tirumozhi. Thirumangai Alvar is the only Alvar who has done Mangala Sasanam to Thirunaraiyur Ninna Nambi. And it is said that any Sambhavana that is offered has to be doubled for the Acharya. So the maximum Pasurams, the maximum continuous Pasurams that he is offered to even Srirangam Perumal and to Thiruvenkatamudayan is only 50. But since Thirunaraiyur Perumal and Thirukkannapuram Perumal are his Acharyans, he doubled the Sambhavane and he offered 100 continuous Pasurams. So these 100 Pasurams are really very, very beautiful. And just like in any other Thirumangai Alvar Pasuram, where he combines the natural beauty along with the glories and the pastimes of Sriman Narayana, he's done that wonderfully in these Pasurams also. We'll spend a few minutes enjoying some of those Pasurams. Before starting the Mangala Sasanam of Thirunaraiyur Nambi, Thirumangai Alvar is performing the Mangala Sasanam to Thiruvinnagar, that is Oppiliyappa Perumal. So there he gives a prelude. So the 6th 100 of Periya Tirumozhi starts with 3 decades dedicated to Thiruvinnagar Oppiliyappa Perumal, Srinivasa Perumal. So there in the third decade, in the third Pasuram, he mentions Thirunaraiyur Tene. He says, Mane nokkunallar madipol mugattulavum, Une kanvali kudaindottan dunnadaindhen, Kone kurungudiyul kudaga, Thirunaraiyur Tene, Varupunal sur Thiruvinnagarane. And then from 6.4 he starts the Anubhavam, the Mangala Sasanam for Thirunaraiyur Perumal. So then our Acharyas ask the question, he's about to sing 100 Pasurams. When he's about to sing 100 Pasurams, enjoying the glories and performing Mangala Sasanams to Thirunaraiyur Nambi, what is the need to mention Thirunaraiyur Tene in the previous decade? So an Acharya called Periyavachan Pillai, who has done the Vyakyanams for the entire Nalayira Divya Prabandham, gives a very beautiful reason. He says, before a flood comes in a river, before the river is going to get flooded, you will see symptoms. What kind of symptoms? You will see glimpses. They call it as Thirunaraiyur Perukukku Sinayaru Padigirathu Kedai. So Periyavachan Pillai has documented this in his Vyakyanam. But this Nirvaham, or this has been established like this by the Acharya called Parasara Bhattar. What that means is, you can see slight bubbles in the river bed, in the dry part of the river bed. Those bubbles or the boils, they will indicate that a flood is going to appear. So similar to that, Thirumangai Alvar here is indicating by saying Thirunaraiyur Tene that he is going to sing 100 Pasurams that are going to follow. So then when he moves on to performing the Mangala Sasanam, he starts the Pasuram as Kannum Sudannu Pilayodu Ilai Vandenginal Pannin Muriyar Payya Nadamin Ennadamun Vinnum Malayum Vedamum Velviyum Ayanan Nannu Narayur Nam Toludum Elinenjame. That is, he says, he invites people to come to Thirunaraiyur, to this Perumal, before they get too old. He says, Kannum Sudannu, when your eyesight is not going to be good, when it just circles around. Pilayodu, you get the Pilai, Ilai Vandi Enginal, Pannin Muriyar. So even the damsels who have very, very sweet speech, they will say, Payya Nadamin, walk slowly, old man, walk slowly. So before they say that, please come, Nannu Narayur Nam Toludum Elinenjame. Let's come and worship Thirunaraiyur Nambi. He says, Kongun Kodalar Kudi Irundu Sirithu, Neer Ingen Irumi Empal Vandadhen Nigadamun. கொங்கார் குழலார் கூடியிருந்து சிரித்து எம்மை எங்கோலம் ஐயா எண்ணினி காண்பதென்னாதமுன் வம்புன் குழலார் வாசலடைத்து இகழாதமுன் சலம் கொண்ட சொல்லார் தாங்கள் சிரித்து இகழாதமுன் எண்ணீர் இருமி எம்பால் வந்தது எண்ணி இகழாதமுன் இவன் பொல்லான் திரைந்தான் என்னும் புறனுரை கேட்பதன் முன் ஏங்கு கிழவன் எண்ணாதமுன் கோலில் தளர்ந்து இளையாதமுன். So before you get old, basically, before you get old, and they say there's no country for old men, right? So here, Alvar says, before you get too old and before people start mocking you and before you just fall, before you need a third leg in the form of a stick, in the form of a walking stick, before all of that happens, before the youngsters start making fun of you, please come and visit Thirunaraiyur Nambi. In one of the Pasurams, Thirumangai Alvar says, ஒளியா வெண்ணை உண்டானென்னு உரலோடு ஆய்ச்சி ஒன்கையிற்றால் விழியா ஆர்க்க ஆப்புண்டு விம்மி அழுதான் மென்மலர் மேல். That is, he talks about Krishna. He talks a lot about Krishna Anubhavam in these Pasurams. It is very appropriate to enjoy some of those now because Krishna Jayanti is just coming up. It is the month of Avani. It is in the month of Avani that Krishna was born. So we can all enjoy him. So he says, Oliya vennai undanenne. Vennai undanenne. So what does Yashoda do? Yashoda says, oh, you stealer, you thief, butter thief, I am going to tie you up. And then she ties him up to the mortar. So then what does Krishna do? Viliya arka aapundu vimmi aludan. He just cries. He cries, vimmi, vimmi alaran. So then, apparently, a doubt was in Swami Ramanuja's mind whenever he did the Anusandhanam of this Pasuram, which is, he is the Sarveshwaran. He is the Sarveshwaran, then why is he afraid of the mere Yashoda, who is just a cowherd lady? And Swami Ramanuja got his answer. One of Ramanuja's Sishyas is called Vangiburattu Nambi. And Vangiburattu Nambi had been asking Swami Ramanuja to teach him how to do Tiruvaradhanam. And Swami Ramanuja was always saying, yes, let's do it. And somehow the time hadn't come. And then once Ramanuja went to Tirumalai, Tiruvenkatam. There he asked Kuratalvan and Hanumat Dasar to come, and he started teaching them about the process or the procedures for doing Tiruvaradhanam. So when he was finishing up the explanation and the teaching, at that time Vangiburattu Nambi showed up. Then Embirumana Ramanuja was startled. He was startled because he was like, oh my God, Vangiburattu Nambi has been asking me to teach him how to do Tiruvaradhanam. I could have taught him a long time ago. But I did not do that. I could have invited him when I am doing the lesson for Kuratalvan and Hanumat Dasar. But I forgot to do that also. And now that I am finishing up, at that time, Vangiburattu Nambi shows up. So he was startled. He says, even though Vangiburattu Nambi is his Sishya, at that moment, Embirmanar was afraid of Vangiburattu Nambi. Even though he has complete control over his Sishyas. So in those days, right, Sishyas were paratantras to the Acharyas. That means they will be under the complete control of the Acharyas. So at that point, right, Ramanuja was startled and a little bit afraid of what he had done. So immediately it dawned upon him as to how Krishna would have been afraid of Yashoda, even though he is the Sarveshwaran and Yashoda is just a mere cowherd lady. So Embirmanar says, O Vangiburattu Nambi, today I understood the meaning of that Pasuram, of that Thirunaraiyur Pasuram, where Alvar says, Vimmi Aludan. In the second two lines of this Pasuram, Alvar says, Kaliya vandu kallunna kamaru tennal alartootra nalirvai mullai muruvalikum narayur ninna nambiye. That is, he says, Alvar says, Kaliya vandu kallunna. That is the vandu, the bees, they drink, they are intoxicated. They've drunk the kall, the madhu. And then the tendril or the breeze, what the breeze does is it's alartutra, which means it's spreading throughout, and it's causing the flowers to fall. But Alvar here uses the word alartutra. So which means he says, hey, the tendril is talking ill about the vandu who is intoxicated. The ullurai porul, or the deeper meaning, is that supposedly there is a Bhagavata who has done something wrong. And then there is another person who observes this and then just keeps talking ill about him. So what should you do in that situation? In the next line, Alvar says, Nalirvai mullai muruvalikum narayur ninna nambiye. So the mullai which is looking at this, it says, okay, the mistake has happened. So what? Why are you making a big deal out of this? So you should just let it go. And then it just offers a muruval, a silent smile. So that is how we should be. That is, we should just ignore if a devotee makes any small mistakes. And then in another Pasuram here, in this decad, there is a very beautiful point that has been emphasized. In the 6th Pasuram, Alvar says, Palli Kamalatidaippatta Paguvai Alavan Mugam Noki Nalliyudum Vayal Soonda Narayur Ninna Nambiye. So here they are talking about two crabs. Apparently, two crabs in Narayur used to live in a ambal flower. And then what happens? The ambal flower is, I think, a water lily, and at that point the female crab, it gets pregnant. So the male crab is trying to take care of the needs of the female. So one day it goes far and beyond to get something nice and sweet. Because it's so sweet, it wants to fetch the nectar from a lotus. So it goes far and beyond, and then by the time it is able to find a lotus and go into the lotus, by the time the sun sets. The sun sets, so what happens? The lotus closes. So the Nandu is not able to come out. So the Nandu gets stuck within the lotus. And then it has to wait. It tries all night to somehow escape. And in the process, all the pollen gets stuck onto the Nandu. The next morning, after sunrise, the lotus blooms again, and now the Nandu is able to come out. Now when the Nandu comes out, it rushes back to its female. But when it rushes back to its female, by the time it reaches, now the water lilies, the ambals, they close in the morning. So then this pen Nandu, right? So it says, at that time, it looks at this Nandu, and then the water lily just closes. Palli Kamalatidaippatta Paguvai Alavan Mugam Noki Nalliyudum Vayal Soonda Narayur Ninna Nambiye. So what this signifies is that the female is upset. The female thinks that, oh, this male Nandu, it has gone and met probably other females. So it goes into a Pranaya Rosham, or it just shuts the door. It shuts the door by closing the ambal flower. So when this explanation was being given by Sri Parasara Bhattar, a Sishya called Pillai Thirunaraiyur Arayar, he says, how is this fair? It's not fair, right? So the male crab should have at least been offered a chance to justify its position. Should be asked for an explanation. This is like punishment without allowing the person to explain himself. So then Butler says, yes, what you say is right, but think of the place. This place is Thirunaraiyur, which means this is a Pen Arasu Nadu, which means it is ruled by the ladies. It's a kingdom of the ladies. And here, what Nachiyar Vaithadudan Sattam. That is Pen Vaithade Sattam. So the females, they rule here. So you can't ask any questions. Whatever they decide, that's what it is. It's a very interesting Rasamana Anubhavam. Moving on to the 700, Tirumangayalvar says, Karava Madanagu Tankandrullinar Pol Maravadadiyen Unnaye Alaikinren. What that means is, here he says, if you look at the surface level meaning, it looks like Alvar says Karava Madanaga, which means there is a cow. Okay, so that cow hasn't started. It's not giving any milk yet, and that Karava Madanaga Tan Kandru Ullinar Pol. That is, it is thinking about its calf. Karava Madanaga Tan Kandru Ullinar Pol Maravad Adiyen Unnaye Alaikinren. He says like that, I am not free. I am repeatedly calling after you. Adiyen Unnaye Alaikinren. Maravad Adiyen Unnaye Alaikinren. This is Tirumangayalvar's verse. So the meaning doesn't fit, because how can Alvar be the mother? Here it is appropriate if you say that Alvar is the calf and Perumal is the thai. Perumal is the mother cow, right? So this was asked, and then the Acharyas have given a beautiful explanation. They say that, so the Irandam Vetrumai Urube, so it's I, Karava, so that is hidden here. So it's not that Karava Madanag Tan Kandru Ullinar Pol. It does not mean that Alvar is the mother and he is thinking of Perumal, who is the calf. Karava Madanagai Tan Kandru Ullinar Pol. That is the explanation that we have to take, which means the calf is calling out for the mother. And that is the right meaning for this pasuram. Now it fits very beautifully. And then when Alvar is wrapping up the continuous 100 pasurams, in 739 he says, En seigeen adiyen urayir idharku endru en manatte irukkum pugal தஞ்சையாளியை பொன்பெயரோன் நெஞ்சமன் இழந்தவனை தழலே புரை மின்செய் வாளரக்கன் நகர் பாழ்பட சூழ்கடல் சிறை வைத்தி இமையோர் தொழும் பொன்செய் மால்வரையை மணிக்குன்றினை அந்நியன் மனம் போர்த்தி எண்ணாதே. So here he does the Mangala Sasanam for Tanjayali. So Tanjayali is the Divya Desam called Tanjai Mamani Kovil. So there are only 3 pasurams for Tanjai Mamani Kovil, and one of them is this Tanjayali that's mentioned here. And then when Tirumangayalvar starts his Periya Tirumozhi in Vadi, in the 6th pasuram he does Mangala Sasanam for Tanjai Mamani Kovil, and then Bhudathalvar does the Mangala Sasanam in Irandam Tiruvandadi, which goes Tamarullum Tanjai Talayarangam Tankal. So that is worth mentioning at this stage. There are several other instances which are very, very beautiful to enjoy in both the Madal and the Periya Tirumozhi pasurams of Thirunaraiyur. And Alvar has also done Mangala Sasanam in Thirunedundandagam. They are very beautiful to enjoy. But Adiyan has given here the meanings Yathamati Yatha Avakasam, which is depending upon the time and depending upon Adiyan's limited knowledge. So with that, we will wrap up today's session. Thodu Vindalar Pumbozhil Mangayar Thonnal Vaatkalien Thiruvalinadan Nannarayur Ninna Nambidan Nalla Maamalar Chevadi Senniyil Soodiyum Tozhudum Ezhundadiyum Thondargat Kavan Sonna Solmalai Paadal Pathivai Paadumin Thondir Paada Nummidai Pavam Nillave Srimadhali Srinagari Nathaya Kalivairine Chatushkavi Prathanaya Parakalaya Mangalam Alvar Emberumanar Jiyar Thiruvadigalé Sharanam.